The moment Patrick Pierce looked out his office window and saw the woman with the megaphone, he knew his carefully orchestrated morning was about to go to hell. She stood on the sidewalk below, her dark hair whipping in the wind as she rallied a growing crowd around her. Even from the 37th floor, he could see the fire in her gestures, the conviction in the way she held herself. A banner unfurled behind her read, "Pierce Pharmaceuticals, Profits over People." Patrick felt his jaw tighten as he watched her point up at his building, her mouth moving with what he imagined were scathing accusations. "Mr. Pierce, security is asking if you want them to disperse the protesters," his assistant Linda said from the doorway, her voice carefully neutral. Patrick turned from the window, straightening his tie. At 32, he had built Pierce Pharmaceuticals into a $10 billion empire after inheriting his father's modest drug company at 25. He had not done it by backing down from fights. "No, I am going down there myself." Linda's eyes widened. "Sir, I do not think that is wise." "I did not ask what you thought was wise." Patrick was already striding past her, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the marble floor. He took the elevator down, his reflection staring back at him from the polished doors. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of sharp features that made business rivals uncomfortable across negotiation tables. His dark suit was perfectly tailored, his expression set in the stern lines that had become his default over the years of running a corporation. The elevator doors opened to the lobby, and Patrick pushed through the revolving door into the crisp October morning. The crowd had grown to maybe 50 people, but his eyes went straight to her. Up close, she was even more striking than he had anticipated. Mid-20s, with fierce brown eyes and an energy that seemed to electrify the space around her. Pierce Pharmaceuticals increased the price of insulin by 300% in 2 years. She shouted into her megaphone. People are rationing their medication, dying because they cannot afford what should be their basic right to health care. That is an oversimplification of a complex economic reality, Patrick called out, his voice cutting through the crowd without needing amplification. She turned, and those brown eyes locked onto him. For a moment, something electric passed between them, but then her expression hardened. "And who are you supposed to be? Another corporate stooge come to mansplain economics to me? I am Patrick Pierce. I own this company. And before you continue your little demonstration, perhaps you should understand the actual facts." A murmur ran through the crowd. The woman lowered her megaphone slightly, and he could see the surprise flicker across her face before it was replaced by renewed determination. She handed the megaphone to someone else and stepped forward until she was just a few feet away from him. "Brenna Bishop," she said, extending her hand with a challenge in her eyes. "I understand the facts perfectly. Your company is prioritizing shareholder value over human lives." Patrick shook her hand, feeling the firm grip, the calluses that suggested she was not afraid of hard work. "We invest billions in research and development. Those costs have to be recouped somehow, or we cannot create new medications at all." Convenient excuse while your executives pull in 8-figure bonuses. Brenna crossed her arms. "I have done my research, Mr. Pierce. Your company's profit margins are obscene. You could cut drug prices in half and still turn a healthy profit. You are an economist now." Patrick knew he sounded condescending, but something about her rattled him in a way he was not used to. "I am a social worker. I see every day what your pricing does to real families. I watched a diabetic teenager die last month because her mother was rationing insulin to make it last. She was 15 years old." The raw pain in Brenna's voice cut through Patrick's defensive posture. He saw genuine grief in her eyes, not just political posturing. It unsettled him. "That is tragic, but you cannot lay every healthcare failure at my door. I am not. But I can hold you accountable for your part in a broken system. Brenna stepped closer, and Patrick caught the scent of her shampoo, something floral and unexpected. You have the power to change this. Will you meet with me? Let me show you the real impact of your decisions. Patrick should have said no. Should have turned around and gone back to his climate-controlled office with its leather chairs and panoramic views. Instead, he found himself saying, "Fine, tomorrow, 9 a.m. my office." Brenna blinked, clearly not expecting agreement. Really? You want to change my mind, convince me, but no megaphones. Patrick turned to walk away, then paused. And Miss Bishop, I am not the villain you want me to be. Prove it, she called after him. As Patrick rode the elevator back up, he could not stop replaying the conversation. The passion in her voice, the pain when she talked about the teenager. He had spent so long looking at spreadsheets and profit projections that he had forgotten there were human stories behind every number. Or maybe he had deliberately not thought about it. It was easier that way. That night, Patrick could not focus on the acquisition reports waiting on his desk. He found himself Googling Brenna Bishop instead. She ran a nonprofit called Healthcare for All, had a master's degree in social work from Columbia, and had been arrested twice for civil disobedience at pharmaceutical company protests. There was a photo of her at her rally, fist raised, face alight with conviction. Patrick stared at the image longer than he should have. The next morning, Patrick arrived at his office an hour early. He told himself it was to prepare for the meeting, but he knew he was just restless with anticipation. When Linda showed Brenna in at 9 sharp, Patrick stood from behind his desk. She wore jeans and a blazer, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She carried a worn messenger bag that looked like it had seen better days. "Thank you for meeting with me," Brenna said, her tone more measured than yesterday's confrontation. "I said I would." Patrick gestured to the small conference table by the window rather than keeping his desk between them. "Coffee, black, thank you." Brenna settled into a chair and pulled out a thick folder. "I brought case files. I have removed identifying information to protect privacy, but I want you to see the real people affected by drug pricing." For the next 2 hours, Brenna walked Patrick through story after story. A veteran who could not afford his heart medication. A mother choosing between feeding her children and buying her asthma inhaler. An elderly man splitting pills to make them last, even though his doctor had warned against it. She had photos, medical records with names blacked out, letters from families. By the end, Patrick felt something twist uncomfortably in his chest. "These are compelling," he admitted, sitting back in his chair. "But you are showing me worst-case scenarios. The vast majority of patients have insurance that covers most of these costs. Most is not all. Should the people who fall through the cracks just die because they are not profitable?" Brenna's eyes flashed. "You have a monopoly on several of these drugs. People have no alternative. We have patient assistance programs, which require so much paperwork that many people cannot navigate the system. I help families apply, and even I find it deliberately obtuse." Brenna leaned forward. "Mr. Pierce, I am not saying you are evil. I am saying the system you operate in incentivizes the wrong things. You could be a leader in changing that." Patrick stood, walking to the window. Below, the city sprawled out in geometric patterns of steel and glass. "If I slash prices tomorrow, my board will remove me. Shareholders will revolt. It is not as simple as just deciding to be generous." "So you are trapped by your own success." There was something softer in Brenna's voice now. "That must be frustrating." Patrick turned to look at her, surprised by the empathy. "You are supposed to be arguing with me. I am trying to understand you." Brenna stood, moving to join him at the window. "Everyone wants to make you a cartoon villain, But I saw something yesterday when I mentioned that girl who died. You cared. Just for a second before you put your armor back on. You are very perceptive." Patrick found himself standing closer to her than was strictly professional, or very manipulative. "Can I be both?" A small smile played at the corners of Brenna's mouth, and Patrick felt his heart do something complicated. "Have lunch with me," he said before he could stop himself. Brenna's smile faded. "Is this some kind of power play, wine and dine the activist?" "No, I want to keep talking, off the record, just two people trying to understand each other." Patrick held her gaze. "There is a cafe a few blocks away, neutral territory." Brenna studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but I am paying for my own lunch. I would expect nothing less." The cafe was small and unpretentious, the kind of place Patrick never went to. They squeezed into a corner booth, and Patrick felt oddly exposed without his desk and office as protective barriers. Over sandwiches and soup, their conversation drifted away from pharmaceuticals to more personal topics. "Why social work?" Patrick asked. Brenna wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. "My little brother had leukemia when he was 8. I was 13. I watched my parents nearly lose everything trying to pay for his treatment, even with insurance. The hospital's social worker was the one who helped us navigate the system, find assistance, just kept us from falling apart. Jake survived, and I knew that was what I wanted to do. Help families the way we were helped." "Is Jake okay now?" "He is 21 and in college, studying to be a teacher." "He is perfect." Brenna's whole face softened when she talked about her brother. "What about you? Did you always want to run a pharmaceutical empire?" Patrick laughed, a short, bitter sound. "I wanted to be an architect, design buildings, create spaces where people could live and work. My father had other plans. When he died suddenly, I inherited everything. I was 25 and completely unprepared. I could have sold the company, but instead I convinced myself I could do something meaningful with it. Somewhere along the way, I lost sight of that. It is not too late to find it again." Brenna reached across the table, her hand landing on his forearm. The touch was brief but electric. "You have resources most people can only dream of. You could make a real difference." "Is that what this is? You are trying to reform me?" Patrick did not move his arm away. "Maybe I am just trying to get to know you." Brenna pulled her hand back, looking almost shy. "Yesterday I thought you were just another greedy billionaire. Today I am seeing someone more complicated." "Complicated. That is one word for it." Patrick signaled for the check, then remembered Brenna wanted to pay for herself. "We should do this again." "Another meeting?" "No, another lunch or dinner without the case files and the arguments." Patrick met her eyes. "Would you have dinner with me this weekend?" Brenna bit her lip, clearly warring with herself. "I do not date billionaires, or the targets of my activism." "Good thing I am not asking for a date then. Just dinner. Two complicated people eating food together." Patrick found himself holding his breath, waiting for her answer. "Saturday night. But nowhere fancy, I mean it. I know a place in Brooklyn. Best Italian food you will ever have. No pretension, no paparazzi." "You have paparazzi?" Brenna's eyes widened. "Sometimes. Billionaire problems." Patrick grinned and Brenna laughed, the sound filling him with unexpected warmth. They exchanged numbers, and as Patrick watched Brenna walk away down the crowded sidewalk, he realized he was in trouble. He could not remember the last time someone had challenged him the way she did, seen through his carefully constructed walls, made him want to be better. It terrified him. Saturday arrived faster than Patrick expected. He found himself changing shirts 3 times, which was ridiculous. He was a billionaire who had negotiated deals with Fortune 500 CEOs without breaking a sweat, but the thought of dinner with Brenna Bishop had him nervous as a teenager. He finally settled on dark jeans and a simple button-down, wanting to match her casual style. The restaurant in Brooklyn was a small family-owned place his driver Marco had recommended years ago. Patrick arrived first, securing a booth in the back. When Brenna walked in wearing a green dress that brought out the gold flecks in her brown eyes, Patrick forgot how to breathe for a moment. "You look beautiful," he said as she slid into the booth across from him. Brenna blushed. "You clean up nice yourself. Though I have to admit, I Googled you after our lunch. You left out the part where Forbes ranked you as the most eligible bachelor under 35. That list is nonsense. Half those men are insufferable." Patrick grinned. "What else did you learn from your research?" "That you went to Harvard at 16, which is terrifying. That you doubled your father's company's value in 7 years. That you are on the board of 3 museums and 2 children's hospitals." Brenna tilted her head. "That last part surprised me." "Why?" "Evil billionaires cannot support children's hospitals. I told you. I stopped thinking you were evil after our first meeting." Brenna's expression grew serious. "I think you care more than you let on. I think that is why you get so defensive." Patrick felt exposed under her perceptive gaze. The waiter arrived with menus, giving him a moment to collect himself. They ordered wine and appetizers, falling into easier conversation about books and music and childhood memories. Patrick found himself telling stories he had not thought about in years, about growing up with impossible expectations and learning to be hard because kindness was seen as weakness in business. "That sounds lonely," Brenna said softly. "It is." Patrick took a sip of wine. "I have business associates, not friends. I date occasionally, but mostly women who want what I represent, not who I actually am. You are the first person in years who seems genuinely unimpressed by my wealth." "Oh, I am impressed by your wealth. I just think you could be using it better." Brenna's eyes sparkled with mischief. "But I am also impressed by other things. The way you really listened when I showed you those case files. How you did not have me arrested for protesting, even though you could have. That you are here, having dinner with someone who publicly called you a villain." "Maybe I have a thing for my critics." Patrick reached across the table, taking Brenna's hand. She did not pull away. "Or maybe I have a thing for passionate, brilliant, beautiful women who make me want to be better than I am." "Patrick," Brenna breathed his name like a prayer. "This is complicated. We are on opposite sides of something important. Then let us find a middle ground." Patrick ran his thumb across her knuckles. "I cannot promise to transform my entire company overnight, but I have been thinking about what you said, about patient assistance programs. What if I hired you as a consultant? You could redesign the system, make it actually accessible. It is a start." "You are serious." "I want to do something meaningful. You could help me figure out how." Patrick squeezed her hand. "And selfishly, it would give me an excuse to see you more often." Brenna laughed, shaking her head. "You are dangerous. I came here planning to keep my distance, and you are offering me exactly what I want. Is it working?" "Yes, damn it." Brenna turned her hand in his, lacing their fingers together. "But I have conditions. I want real authority to make changes. I want to bring in other advocacy groups for input, and I am not going to stop pushing you to do more. I would be disappointed if you did." Patrick signaled the waiter for their main courses. "Tell me more about your nonprofit. What would you do if money were no object?" For the rest of dinner, they talked about Brenna's vision for healthcare reform, her dreams of expanding her organization, the families she wanted to help. Patrick found himself making mental notes, already thinking about how Pierce Pharmaceuticals could partner with healthcare for all. But more than that, he found himself captivated by the light in Brenna's eyes when she talked about her work, the way her whole body came alive with purpose. After dinner, Patrick offered to drive Brenna home. She lived in a modest apartment in Queens, a world away from his penthouse in Manhattan. As they pulled up to her building, Patrick turned to face her. "I had a really good time tonight," he said, feeling awkward and young. "Me too." Brenna unbuckled her seatbelt but did not move to leave. "Patrick, I need you to know something. If we start something, I cannot compromise my principles. I am still going to fight for what I believe in. I know. It is part of what I love about you." The word slipped out before Patrick could stop it, too soon and too honest. Brenna's eyes widened. "Patrick, too much." He ran a hand through his hair. "Sorry, I am apparently terrible at this. No, I just—" Brenna bit her lip. "I feel it too, this thing between us. It scares me." "Terrifies me," Patrick admitted. "I have spent years building walls and you walked through them in 2 days like they were paper." Brenna leaned across the console, cupping Patrick's face in her hand. "What are we doing? I have no idea, but I do not want to stop." Patrick covered her hand with his own, turning to press a kiss to her palm. "One day at a time," Brenna suggested. "I can work with that." Patrick closed the distance between them, kissing her softly. She tasted like wine and promise, and when she kissed him back, her fingers threading through his hair, Patrick felt something in his chest crack open. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Brenna laughed shakily. "Okay, that was." "Yeah." Patrick rested his forehead against hers. "Can I see you tomorrow? I have to work at the community center in the morning, but afternoon." "I will pick you up at noon. Wear comfortable shoes." The next day, Patrick took Brenna to Central Park. They walked for hours, talking about everything and nothing, stopping to watch street performers and share soft pretzels. Patrick could not remember the last time he had spent an afternoon just being present, not checking his phone every 5 minutes or thinking about the next meeting. With Brenna, the rest of the world faded into background noise. "Tell me about your family," Brenna said as they sat by the lake, watching ducks glide across the water. "Not much to tell. My mother died when I was 10, cancer. My father threw himself into work after that, and I learned to do the same. I have a half-sister from my father's second marriage, but we are not close. She resented me for inheriting the company." Patrick skipped a stone across the water. "What about you? Besides Jake, I mean." "My parents are still married, still crazy in love after 30 years. It is disgusting and adorable." Brenna smiled. "They live upstate. My dad is a high school history teacher. My mom runs a daycare. We are very normal, very middle class." "They are going to have a heart attack when I tell them about you. You are going to tell them about me." Patrick felt absurdly pleased by this. "Eventually, if this keeps going." Brenna leaned her head on his shoulder. "Fair warning, my mom will want to feed you constantly, and my dad will give you the protective father lecture. I look forward to it." Patrick wrapped his arm around her, pulling her closer. "Brenna, I know this is fast, but I need you to know I am serious about this, about you. I know. I can feel it." Brenna tilted her face up to look at him. "I am serious too, even though part of me thinks I am absolutely crazy for dating a billionaire pharmaceutical CEO." "Former villain billionaire pharmaceutical CEO," Patrick corrected with a grin. "I am reformed now." "Not yet." "But you are getting there." Brenna kissed him, slow and sweet, and Patrick felt like he was falling without ever leaving the ground. Over the next few weeks, Patrick and Brenna settled into a rhythm. Brenna came to Pierce Pharmaceuticals 3 times a week to work on redesigning the patient assistance programs. She brought in advocacy groups and social workers, and Patrick watched her command conference rooms full of skeptical executives with the same passion she had shown on the sidewalk that first day. His board was not happy with the changes, but Patrick found himself caring less about their approval and more about the look in Brenna's eyes when they made real progress. They kept their relationship quiet at first, both aware of how it would look if word got out. But stolen moments in Patrick's office, late dinners at out-of-the-way restaurants, and lazy Sunday mornings at Brenna's apartment filled with coffee and laughter, made it increasingly hard to hide what was growing between them. "I want to go public with this," Patrick said one evening as they cooked dinner together in his penthouse kitchen. Brenna had insisted on teaching him to make something more complicated than takeout, and they were attempting homemade pasta with varying degrees of success. Brenna looked up from the pasta maker, flour dusting her cheek. Public like a press conference or public like not hiding? Both. Either. Patrick wiped the flour off her face with his thumb. "I am tired of pretending you are just a consultant. You are my girlfriend. I want people to know that." "Your board will lose their minds." Brenna bit her lip. "And the activist community might think I sold out." "Did you?" Patrick kept his voice gentle. "No. God, no." Brenna set down the pasta maker, turning to face him fully. "Everything we have done at Pierce Pharmaceuticals, every change we have made, that is real. And us, this is separate. I did not compromise my values by falling for you. Then we will make people understand that." Patrick pulled her close, not caring about the flour getting on his shirt. "I love you, Brenna. I have loved you since you stood on that sidewalk and called me out with a megaphone. I am done hiding it." Brenna's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too, even when you are being a stubborn, privileged billionaire." "Especially then," Patrick teased, "especially then." Brenna kissed him, and they forgot about the pasta until much later. The announcement came a week after that. Patrick's PR team crafted a careful statement about his relationship with Brenna and the changes Pierce Pharmaceuticals was implementing. The response was mixed. Some praised Patrick for listening to critics and making meaningful reforms. Others accused Brenna of being bought off. The tabloids had a field day with photos of them together, speculating about everything from secret engagements to Brenna's supposed gold-digging motives. "They are calling me a social climber who seduced you for your money," Brenna said one morning, scrolling through her phone with a sick expression. Patrick took the phone from her hands, setting it aside. "We knew this would happen. Anyone who actually knows you knows that is garbage. But people I respect think I compromised the movement." Brenna's voice cracked. "I got an email from another activist saying I am a traitor to the cause. You have done more for that cause from inside my company than you could have in 10 years of protesting outside it." Patrick cupped her face in his hands. "You created a patient assistance program that has already helped thousands of people. You are pushing me to do more every single day. That is not betrayal. That is strategy." "When did you get so good at pep talks?" Brenna managed a watery smile. "I learned from the best." Patrick kissed her forehead. "We will get through this together." They did, though it took time. Brenna wrote an op-ed explaining her position, defending both her relationship and her continued advocacy work. Patrick backed up her words with actions, announcing further price reductions on essential medications and a partnership with healthcare for all to expand access to care. Slowly, the narrative shifted from scandal to success story. 6 months after that first protest, Patrick stood at his office window again, but this time Brenna stood beside him. Below, there was another demonstration, but this time it was celebrating Pierce Pharmaceuticals' announcement of a new generic insulin program that would provide affordable options for diabetics. "Look at what you built," Patrick said, his arm around Brenna's waist. "What we built," Brenna corrected. "I could not have done this without you being willing to change. I could not have changed without you showing me why it mattered." Patrick turned her to face him. "Brenna, I have something for you." He pulled out a small velvet box and Brenna's hand flew to her mouth. "Patrick, I know it has only been 6 months. I know everyone will say it is too fast, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life." Patrick opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful diamond ring. "You challenged me to be better, to see beyond profit margins and shareholder value to the real human impact of my decisions. You made me remember why I wanted to do meaningful work in the first place. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I can be the man you believed I could be. Brenna Bishop, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Brenna's face. "You are right, this is crazy fast. My practical side says we should wait, get to know each other better." Patrick's heart sank, but then Brenna smiled through her tears. "But my practical side has been wrong about you from the beginning. Yes, yes, I will marry you." She threw her arms around his neck, and Patrick lifted her off her feet, spinning her around as relief and joy flooded through him. He slipped the ring on her finger, and they stood there in his office, holding each other as the celebration continued on the streets below. The protesters who had been calling for Patrick's head 6 months ago were now cheering the changes he and Brenna had implemented together. It felt like a full-circle moment, like everything had led to exactly where they were supposed to be. "My parents are going to freak out," Brenna said, laughing through happy tears. "In a good way. My mom is going to cry and immediately start planning the wedding. My dad is going to pretend to be skeptical while secretly being thrilled." Brenna looked up at him. "Jake already thinks you are great, so you have got his vote. What about you? Any second thoughts?" Patrick searched her face. "Not a single one." Brenna kissed him soundly. "Though I am keeping my job at Healthcare for All, and I am still going to push you to do more at Pierce Pharmaceuticals. I would be worried if you did not." Patrick grinned. "Think of it as a lifetime of productive arguments. My favorite kind." They got married 4 months later in a small ceremony upstate at her parents' property. Patrick's business associates were shocked by the intimate, unpretentious affair, but Patrick did not care. He only had eyes for Brenna as she walked down the makeshift aisle in her mother's garden wearing a simple white dress, wildflowers in her hair. Jake stood as a groomsman, having become like a brother to Patrick over the months of family dinners and basketball games. Brenna's parents had welcomed Patrick into their family with open arms once they saw how happy he made their daughter. "I vow to challenge you, support you, and love you every single day," Brenna said during the ceremony, her voice strong and clear. "To push you to be better while accepting you exactly as you are, to build something meaningful together that makes the world a little less broken." Patrick's own vows were simpler but no less heartfelt. "I vow to listen to you, even when you are telling me things I do not want to hear. To use what I have been given to make a real difference. To love you with everything I am for as long as I live. You made me remember how to care, how to see beyond myself. You saved me, Brenna." There was not a dry eye in the garden as they kissed, husband and wife, billionaire and activist. Two people who had found each other across a divide that should have been impossible to cross. The first year of marriage was an adjustment. They moved into Patrick's penthouse, but filled it with Brenna's books and plants, making it feel like a home rather than a showpiece. Brenna continued her work with Healthcare for All, expanding the organization with funding from Patrick's personal wealth, but maintaining its independence. Patrick found himself attending protests and fundraisers, using his platform to advocate for the changes Brenna had convinced him were necessary. Pierce Pharmaceuticals continued to evolve under Patrick's leadership, though not without resistance. He faced several hostile board meetings, and even an attempted coup by shareholders who thought he had gone soft. But Patrick held his ground, with Brenna always there to remind him why the changes mattered. The company's reputation slowly shifted from villain to cautious hero, and Patrick found he slept better at night knowing his work was helping rather than hurting. 2 years into their marriage, Brenna came home from a doctor's appointment with news that sent Patrick into a state of joyful panic. She was pregnant, twins apparently, because even their reproductive systems could not do anything by half measures. Twins, Patrick repeated, sitting heavily on the couch. 2 babies at the same time. That is generally how twins work. Brenna sat beside him, taking his hand. Are you okay? You look pale. I am terrified. What if I am a terrible father? What if I mess them up with my emotional unavailability and workaholic tendencies? Patrick turned to her, genuine fear in his eyes. Then I will be there to balance you out with my bleeding heart liberal tendencies and constant protests. Brenna cupped his face. Patrick, you are going to be an amazing father. I have watched you with Jake's kids. You are gentle and patient and present in a way your father never was with you. You broke that cycle already. Patrick pulled her close, feeling the truth of her words settle something anxious in his chest. We are really doing this. We really are. Brenna kissed him softly. Think of it as our next adventure. Like redesigning patient assistance programs, but with more diapers. So many diapers, Patrick groaned, but he was smiling. The twins, a boy and a girl, were born on a snowy December morning. Patrick held his daughter first, her tiny face scrunched up and red, and felt his entire world reorganize around this tiny person. They named her Maya, after Brenna's grandmother. His son, who came 2 minutes later, they named Peter, after Patrick's mother's maiden name. Watching Brenna with their children, Patrick was reminded again of why he had fallen for her in the first place. She brought the same fierce passion to motherhood that she brought to everything else, protecting their babies with a devotion that was almost frightening in its intensity. But she was also gentle and patient, singing lullabies at 3 in the morning and finding joy even in the exhausting early months. Patrick, for his part, discovered he was good at the practical aspects of parenting. He was excellent at swaddling and could change diapers with the efficiency he usually reserved for business deals. He read to the twins every night, even when they were too young to understand the words, just wanting them to know his voice. You are a natural, Brenna said one night, watching him rock Maya back to sleep after a nightmare. She was 3 years old now, with her mother's brown eyes and her father's determined chin. I had a good teacher. Patrick settled Maya back into her bed, tucking her favorite blanket around her. In the next bed, Peter was already asleep, his stuffed elephant clutched tight. They tiptoed out of the kids' room and back to their own bedroom. Brenna collapsed on the bed with a sigh. Remember when we used to sleep past 6 in the morning, vaguely, like a distant dream. Patrick lay beside her, pulling her close. I do not miss it though, liar. You love sleep. I love this more. Patrick kissed her temple. This messy, chaotic, beautiful life we built. I love coming home to toys on the floor and kids' laughter. I love watching you be a mother. I love being a father. I love you. I love you too. Brenna rolled to face him. Even when you leave your socks on the bathroom floor and schedule 8 a.m. meetings that make you cranky, I am working on the socks thing. Sure you are. Brenna kissed him, slow and sweet, the kiss of long familiarity and deep love. 5 years after that first protest, Patrick stood in front of a congressional committee testifying about pharmaceutical reform. Brenna sat in the gallery, 8-month-old Maya on her lap, and Peter sitting with Jake's wife. Patrick spoke passionately about the need for regulation, for price caps, for putting patient care ahead of profit margins. He cited the changes Pierce Pharmaceuticals had made and challenged other companies to follow suit. The testimony made national news. Some praised his courage in speaking out against his own industry. Others called him a hypocrite and a traitor. Patrick did not care. He had found something more valuable than approval: purpose. That night, as they put the twins to bed, Peter looked up at Patrick with serious eyes. "Daddy, why were you on TV?" "I was telling important people about why medicine should not cost so much money," Patrick explained, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Like what Mommy does?" Peter asked. "Exactly like what Mommy does." Patrick ruffled his son's hair. "Mommy taught me that helping people is more important than making money." "Mommy is smart," Maya declared from her bed. "The smartest," Patrick agreed. "Now sleep, both of you. It is way past bedtime." After the kids were asleep, Patrick and Brenna sat on their balcony, looking out over the city lights. The same view he had seen that morning 5 years ago when he had looked down and seen her protesting. It felt like a lifetime ago. He was a different person now, or maybe he was finally the person he was always supposed to be. "What are you thinking about?" Brenna asked, her hand in his. "That morning you showed up outside my building with a megaphone and changed my life." Patrick brought her hand to his lips. "I was so angry. I came down planning to destroy you with facts and logic. And instead I destroyed you with my devastating good looks and compelling arguments," Brenna teased, something like that. Patrick pulled her close. "I saw you, and something in me recognized something in you. Like you were holding up a mirror showing me who I could be if I just had the courage to change. That is beautiful and far too poetic for this hour." Brenna yawned. "But I will accept it. You did not just change my company, Brenna. You changed me. You made me better, kinder, more aware of the world beyond my own privilege. You gave me purpose and family and love. You gave me everything that matters." "We gave each other everything," Brenna corrected softly. "You think I was not changed by loving you. You showed me that people can grow, that those in power can choose to use it for good. You restored my faith in the possibility of change. And you gave me this incredible life, these beautiful children, this partnership that makes me stronger." They sat in comfortable silence, two people who had found each other across an impossible divide and built a bridge sturdy enough to last a lifetime. Below them, the city continued its restless motion, full of stories and struggles and small revolutions happening every day. Inside, their children slept peacefully, inheritors of a legacy built on passionate conviction and the courage to change. And on a bookshelf in the twins' room sat a framed photo from that first protest, Brenna with her megaphone and fire in her eyes, unknowingly about to meet the love of her life. 10 years after that first confrontation, Patrick and Brenna renewed their vows in the same garden where they had gotten married. Their twins, now 8, stood as flower girl and ring bearer. Brenna was pregnant again, this time with just one baby, and Patrick could not stop grinning as he looked at his wife, still as beautiful and passionate as the day she had challenged him to be better. "I vow to keep challenging you," Brenna said, her vows echoing the ones from a decade before. "To never let you get too comfortable or too complacent. To love you fiercely and completely, even when you drive me crazy." "I vow to keep listening," Patrick replied, "to keep changing and growing, to be worthy of the faith you placed in me. To love you and our family with everything I have, for all the years we have left." They kissed as their children cheered and their families celebrated, and Patrick knew with absolute certainty that every moment had been worth it. The protests, the criticism, the difficult changes, the late nights and early mornings, all of it had led to this perfect, messy, beautiful life. That evening, as they danced under string lights in her parents' garden, Brenna whispered in his ear, "Thank you." "For what?" Patrick asked. "For coming down from your tower that day, for arguing with me instead of having me arrested, for being brave enough to change." Brenna pulled back to look at him. "For loving me, best decision I ever made." Patrick kissed her softly. Well, second best. The first was falling for your passion. Your charm is improving with age, Brenna laughed. I learned from the best, Patrick said, spinning her around the dance floor as their children watched and their families celebrated and the future spread out before them, full of promise and purpose and enduring love. They built a life that mattered, changed an industry that needed changing, raised children who understood both privilege and responsibility, and loved each other through every challenge and triumph. And it all started with a megaphone, a protest, and two stubborn people who refused to back down from what they believed in, even when what they believed in turned out to be each other.